everybody. Welcome back to It Is Ma'am. It is Ma'am. And indeed it is. And today we have a guest, but as usual, I have to do the housekeeping. So please remember to subscribe any platform you please. And I'll remind you, like I did last time, to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Is that what it's even called anymore still?
Okay.
I don't know.
Menopause moment. Too old to know what Apple's products are called. Yeah, do that. If you want to support the show, do it on Spotify. You can leave us a tip, buy us coffee, what have you. And don't forget to check the show notes, because we talk about things that you might want to look further into, and I make it easy by putting links and whatnot. So yeah, not always the most exciting, but anyway, I do it for you. And without further ado, today we are speaking with Wildfire Whispers. I hope she's on this side for everybody. You never know. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Y'all are awesome. I love the show. I love your intro.
So much.
It's ma'am. It is. I'm like, I never thought I would like hearing that dude say that so much. Until y'all remixed it. Perfect.
If we didn't find a way to laugh through this, we would all just cry all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Dresses are funny usually. So.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, there's so much that it's so serious that I can't take it seriously quite often. So it's easier just to take the piss to keep your sanity. You know, we do have quite a lot of serious chat, I think, on this show, but usually our guests are always our guests are really nice and laid back and easygoing, and know how to go with the humor where it's kind of added in here and there. But yeah, I can't take a lot of what we have to say too seriously.
It's true. It's hard stuff.
Doesn't it just every day, like every day you wake up and you immediately look at Twitter, because we are all so healthy.
Yeah.
The first thing you see is so fucking crazy, and you're like, again today? Here I go. Let me put on my boots. Let's get at it.
Yeah, I really must get back into sun gazing first thing in the morning, get my 10 minutes at sunrise instead of this like AGP in my face,
Exactly. No, I'm like, okay, I've been trying to do a thing where I'm like, okay, the first 30 minutes of each day, I'm not touching my phone. I'm gonna, breathe. I'm gonna put my feet on the floor. I'm gonna, try to, and it's going okay. It's not going as well as it should, but it's going all right.
You do feel it though. It totally sets the tone. I'm definitely in a more crabby mood in the morning if I look at my phone first thing, so, but I learned the lesson the hard way, I should have done so much with my day, and like an hour has gone by and I'm still sitting arguing with some insane person. So yeah, terrible habits.
Totally. The first thing in the morning is the worst time for me to see a troll, make a comment. I'm just like, the rest of the day I'm like, I can have context. And then the first time, I open my phone and they're like, oh my God, all of these stupid arguments. Like, women are at any greater risk. And, with men in their restrooms, I'm just like, I definitely have to breathe and have some coffee before I have any sort of like pace rationality with the world. But it's also a huge blessing. I think that we have this space where we can find each other, where we can connect with other women, and where we're allowed to talk about it. Like my heart, I've been a writer for forever, and people have always asked me like, why aren't you a writer, like professionally? And I'm like, well, because I don't want to be pissed off all the time. Am I allowed to curse? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't want to be pissed off all the time, because my best stuff comes when I'm just really upset or really passionate. and I've always been long-winded. So if you've seen anything I write, it's like, yeah, and the character limit, it's not good. So I've always said, like, I don't tweet. And I've stayed away from Twitter until like June, when I started using my account. And it's like, oh my gosh, to find a place where we can say it and where we can find each other without, like, when you're testing, doing the turf test with a friend, you have to like kind of just drop something and like be like, oh, this is ambiguous. Are you going to pick it up, or what are you going to do with that? It's great to be in a place where we can find one another in an open forum. It's a huge exhale for my soul.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
it's a good excuse to have a podcast, because we can just constantly be talking about it with people and meeting new people all the time.
Love it. I love it. Y'all are so cute. Oh my gosh, I love your jackets.
Yeah,
I know. Well, Mel and I were talking the other day about how we're kind of slowly becoming one, but I think, Mel is just the most glorious looking creature I've ever seen in my life. So I think I'm just having a little bit of an obsession, and the hair came off and the bleach back happened, and I'm just, but I adore her. So
I love it.
She did copy my outfit.
I copied her jacket. She had that on, and I was wearing something different, and I ran and changed really quick, just for the record.
We're doing orange today.
And the bricks behind. I just love it. Oh my gosh.
That's fine. So the easiest place to start is, how did you jump into this discussion? How did you, like, were you like me and Kay, just like polite and it's fine and I'm so innocent and I don't know things? And then something happened, or what?
Well, so I had a behind the scenes education, and I sort of had a jump start on all this because years ago I was in a relationship with an AGP, and so I went through all of the stages of that, and the trans widow journey, so to speak. And so in that, I joined a support group, an online support group. And I was so active in this support group because it was, even when you're in that position, and they tell women, if a partner or a wife of an AGP goes online and tries to find resources, like, you can try this. You can go Google and be like, support for the partner of, somebody who's gender questioning, or age, they don't like to use AGP, but crossdresser or anybody. All of the results that you get are geared towards how the partner can support the man, and how to not hurt their feelings, and how to affirm them, and how to, like, and so just the way that it's all set up, these women who are looking for support for their own feelings are getting fed into this affirmation model, like, years ago. This was before it was all, it all blew up. And so I joined this support group that was specifically for women that were struggling with it.
How did you find them?
I just dug on the internet, I dug on the internet. I tried a few places, and it was all every group that I joined, it was very obvious that the women were having difficulties, but it was all about how to, get over it so that they could be more supportive. And that's
so like the women were gaslighting each other, kind of thing, or
because it's a very difficult, it's kind of hard to conceptualize, especially now that we're seeing what we're seeing. But my own journey has kind of shown me how the microcosm and the macrocosm are connected, right? So the things that you go through in a personal relationship, when you're like, like when it happened to me, I was like, well, I don't think I have a problem with this. Like, conceptually, I'm like, I'm a part of the LGB, I'm bi, came back in 98 when it was still like hard to do those things. you know, nobody baked me a rainbow cake or anything. It was just, you know, different. And so I was very open to it. And this is the way that a lot of wives and partners feel at the beginning. It's like, okay, you're really open to it and you want your relationship to work and you love this person, and you kind of like beat yourself up because conceptually you're believing all the taglines that they're saying. Like, I didn't fall in love with, you know, this person because of the way they look, but that's kind of bullshit because you do. And then, you know, that you think, okay, well, I can try this. I'm not biased. I'm not a bigot, you know, and we're all invested in our romantic relationships very deeply. And so when you're in that, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try to make this work. I'm going to try to figure this out. And a lot of these women, and myself included, in that, we're like, why does this hurt? Why does this hurt? What's wrong in me that this is hurting me? Because up here, I feel like it should be fine. And
Yeah.
it was through that, and, you know, through my own journey of trying to find the problem in me and doing all of this research. And I'm just, you know, I'm a voracious reader and researcher, and I'm a spiritual practitioner. And so, you know, I always just kind of dive into the levels of things. And it's like uncovering one level of truth at a time, one level of truth at a time, until you find, oh, this is why it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just why it hurts, it's why it's wrong. It's why it's harmful, you know. And you have that waking up moment of like, oh shit, I can't get over this.
Yeah.
Because this is too deep, this is too real. And so that was my own journey, was like in trying to. And a lot of times I don't think any other person other than the person going through gender stuff like wants it to be true in the beginning as much as their partners. Like, these women, they don't want it to be a big deal. They don't want it to mean that their whole life has to burn down and that their children, and, you know, like, they want it to be okay. And so a lot of times we peak the hardest because we're like, no, we really tried to make this real. We really tried to make this okay. And it's not.
Yeah.
And then, you know, over the years, I went from being a member of that group to leading that group. And I led it for several years, and about 250 trans widows and wives and partners of AGPs went through there. And so I was constantly researching and finding different ways to support them in wherever their relationship was. Some of them can't leave, some of them don't want to leave, some of them are left. I mean, you know, so we really tried to figure out a way to be there for them. Like, wherever you are, you have sisters to support you, because these women can't talk about what they're going through, especially the ones that are still in it, or they have kids, or they're, you know, financially dependent, or just horribly abused and traumatized, you know, which not all of them are, but a lot of them. So yeah, that was kind of my education before it started blowing up. And I remember back then thinking like, wow, if this ever gets to where it's mainstream and it's as out there like publicly and in culture, then women are screwed. Like, I was like, Roe v. Wade is going to be the first thing out the door. Then, you know, progressively the definition of woman being erased. And so I kind of like back then remember thinking about all of this stuff happening. And now it is. So yeah, that was my peaking for sure.
Yeah, well, you've definitely got a grasp, you know, an
Yeah.
insider's point of view on what the hell is going on
Yeah.
within the community and how
Front
it
row
affects.
seat, backstage passes. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about the women that you were acquainted with in that chapter, were they largely having any other kinds of counselling, couples counselling with their partners, or were they just kind of supporting one another within this wives group, you know?
Yeah. Well, the counseling, and I saw y'all had Shannon
Tracy.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's amazing. Tracy, yeah. They, at the beginning, everybody's like, oh, go get counseling, go get counseling. We all go get counseling. And then you start to see that, first of all, the counseling profession, when it comes to this, right? When it comes to AGP, cross-dressing, transvestic fetishism, which it's estimated that 3 to 4% of men have some form of transvestic fetishism. Like, it's not rare. How deep it goes for them, because it tends to be progressive and addictive. That varies person to person. But there was this strange acceptance even back then of like, all other sexual addictions or obsessions can be treated, but this one can't. Like, you can't stop it, you can't reverse it, which is not true. I've seen it multiple times. The guy has to treat it like a sexual disorder, like a sexual obsession, and like do that, and he can reverse it, but not once they get past a certain point. Sorry, I talk with my hands all the time. But so the counseling that women would get would be geared towards, like I said, them accepting, them making sure that their husband felt okay, that he felt secure, and that, and it was at the best, the counselor would be a negotiator, because the wife was told she had to negotiate. If she said no, that wasn't going to stop it. Women are constantly told, you can't put up boundaries in your marriage, you can't put up an ultimatum. And over the years, I've come to believe that an ultimatum is the only way to get through that. Is not at all. Either you are fully supportive of having a trans husband, or you're not gonna put up with it at all. Because every time they would go to counseling and they would say, okay, well, he's gonna do this, he has to do it, so we'll put up boundaries. We'll say he can only do it at this time, only do it when you're not there, or only do it in certain ways. And then these women feel like, okay, well, he's just got an invisible mistress, and they just go through so much. Like, you hear about all of this polyamory stuff. I don't know how people do that. I'm so jealous. I mean, like, but I often think, when I see those couples and those, or triples, whatever you call them, if your husband or boyfriend is off on a date with another person, like how that feels. That's how the wives of AGPs feel when they know it's going on, even if they've agreed to it in this certain circumstance.
Yeah.
And it's just very, very difficult. And so the counselors at their best, that would be the most advocating that they did for the women, was being like, okay, boundaries. But this thing, it pushes against boundaries in a way that, I mean, boundaries almost make it stronger. And then there would be resentment, and and the wives would suffer a lot. And then it was just a matter of time before they blew through the boundaries. And the counselors often, like really, really often, would be a part of like planning with the husband behind the wife's back. And then they go in thinking that they're going for a counseling session, and all of a sudden it's the counselor and the husband being like, oh, so she's transitioning now, and you need to be on board, and you're going to be a lesbian, and it's going to be just great. And it's I think that the counseling, I don't know, industry really has this wrong, obviously. But it was
Yeah.
very, very hard. I mean, by the end of it, I would tell women, don't fucking do it. Don't go to marital counseling. Go to your own counselor. Go to your own therapist.
Yeah.
Don't do it with the husband, because I saw that so many times. The ambush. It was, yeah.
Yeah, it's the added extras, isn't it? Because it's not a case of, well, you can come around to the idea of your husband putting on your pants, a couple of times a week. It's not that, is it? It's
Right.
You're going to have to learn how to be okay with your husband going off for weekends. You're going to have to get used to your husband. He has to go to this club every week,
Right.
and it's like, no, I can't understand. There's no other functional relationship that I can think of where that is what would be advised by,
Right.
A couples therapist or whatever. So yeah, it's a very exceptional thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very odd.
It
Very
follows
odd.
all of the same patterns, and we talked about this with Ask a Trans Widow, Tracy, all of the same patterns as addiction,
Yes.
including that the only thing that works is an ultimatum.
Yeah.
Including that the boundaries don't fucking work. As a matter of fact, they make the thing more precious. And that's even with smoking cigarettes. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I can only have two. Well, how amazing are those two cigarettes going to be? How
Right.
fucking cool would it be if you could have three and no one would ever know? Anyway,
Yep.
it's
And then
all
you're
exactly
thinking
the
about
same. And no addiction counselor would advocate for any of that. I mean, it's so backwards. Everything in all of this, as we know down the line, and all of the different things is all ass motherfucking backwards.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved I saw a tweet by Eva Kurilova yesterday, a piece that she'd written. I'll have a link to it somewhere. We can maybe add that in. But we
Yeah.
spoke to Eva a couple of months back. And she did a kind of a list. It's perfect.
It's
Just
so
all
good.
the backwards, batshit.
I saw
That
that.
doesn't make any sense if you reverse it.
Oh my
just-
gosh. Yes.
We
and it
should
was so concise. Like
we should either
every
have
word
her
of it was good.
on. We should either have her on, sorry, or ask permission to read it aloud, because it's
Yeah.
that
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the 10 fucking commandments of what the fuck is going on here for real.
And why it doesn't work, why it doesn't make any sense. I mean, up can't be down. We live all the
And
fact that
every
our
single
society
part
that
of it
won't-
is in favor of him.
Yes,
And
right.
every single part of it is against women. Every single
Yes.
part of it,
Yes.
because
And
I wonder,
really worry.
these patterns that you're describing about the things that these women are subjected to when they seek counseling, I wonder how often that's happening the other way around. The wife announces that she is in fact a trans man after a couple of kids together or whatever. How often is the man encouraged to just get on board with that?
Right. Yeah.
I can't think of, I don't think that's happening.
No,
So
it's not. And actually I'm reading a book right now that I really, really recommend. I don't know if y'all have read it, Doublethink.
no.
Oh my gosh, it's fabulous. It's by some very famous feminist author that I should know, but I'm terrible with names. And
We'll
she
put it in writing somewhere.
yeah, Doublethink. It's amazing. And she talks about the statistics of, how people are always reporting the statistics of violence against trans people. Those are only the statistics for trans women, for trans identifying men. The trans identifying women / trans men are actually really subjected to a lot of sexual and just violent abuse within that community. And they're told not to talk about it because that would be traitorous, that would be treason, it would harm your community. And that was something that I actually hadn't really thought about before, and I'm going to do more research into that. But yeah, with the inverse, they wouldn't be yeah, they wouldn't be expecting the man to get on board. But in our society, you know, I mean, and women are more sexually kind of flexible, for sure. I mean, there's been those studies, but that doesn't mean, I mean, when you fall in love with a man, and I would hear I mean, women talk about this all the time, like, and you start that bargaining process, whether that's with a counselor or just on your own, because women try to put down boundaries. It's like negotiating the pieces of someone you love that are going to disappear. And it's heartbreaking for these women to, like, even just, you know, his chest hair or his beard, or, you know, and you're watching somebody that you love reject themselves and just tear themselves to pieces. And it's never enough. And as much as the wives try, it's not enough. And then they try to take it out into the world, where, you know, at home, they when the wife is the only one involved, she loves him, she's trying to make it work, and she's also been thoroughly conditioned and knows they get very fragile egos, very, very fragile egos, very easy, like they're like emotionally sunburned. You don't mean to, you know, do something, and then they blow up. So the wives are very conditioned to be like, okay, well, when he's Rita, you know, I'm gonna be super nice, and, oh, you look lovely, you look so pretty, and then maybe he'll take it off and I can get some time with, you know, John. But out in the world, nobody's been conditioned. So
Yeah.
when they go out, and it used to be, this was sort of self-limiting, it was sort of self-controlling, because there was social pressure, social taboo. So these men stayed, you know, they gave themselves their own boundaries. And if they went somewhere, it was very, you know, they were very subtle, or they went to specific places, or they, you know, it was at night, and, you know, to a gay club or something. It wasn't out in the streets and, you know, at Starbucks yelling and taking people's phones. It was subtle. But when they go out, they don't, the people in the world are not conditioned to respond to them the way that their wives are.
Right.
And so that, like, it fuels it to another level of, they have that fragile ego reaction. And also a comorbidity, a really bad one, is OCD. OCD is very, very prevalent in the AGPs that end up doing this. And so they obsess over, like, okay, I didn't get the reaction that I wanted, so I have to make this more. I have to go further. I have to go further. And then I think the progression of that is where we find ourselves right now, where they're so obsessed with controlling people's reactions to them, and calling for punishment if we don't respond like we're supposed to. I see that mirror the experiences of wives, like, so deeply, because that's what these women are going through. If they say the wrong thing, if they do the wrong thing, and then you get in this, like, hyper, like, you know,
Hypervigilance. Yeah,
yes.
you're monitoring your own reactions and responses, and, you know, altering how you're communicating, because you're seeing what responses you're going to get. I get that. That's just going to take its toll on your nervous system. And I suppose that makes sense, where, you know, earlier you were talking about not kind of knowing where that line was ever crossed, because in the beginning you want to be the agreeable, we can keep, you know, we can make it through this, our marriage doesn't need to fall apart, so I will find a way to navigate this. I think possibly the hypervigilance over time is just going to wear you down to the point where you just can't not see it for what it is anymore, you know?
Yes. And if you look at, and I've been meaning to find these studies, they're kind of in old files now, but the amount of study done on partners of transvestic fetishists and AGP, you know, I mean, those are one and the same, but, you know, it's been very minimal. But I was able to find studies, and they were all, oh my God, so sad. Like, and it was also very interesting because they would first separate them into, okay, pardon me, into, are they accepting, are they kind of in the middle, or are they rejecting, you know? And so there would be a certain percentage for each of those groups, but it didn't matter which group they were in. After a certain amount of time, it was like 89% had complex PTSD, you know, the PTSD that you get from being in a hypervigilant, in like a stressful situation over a long period of time. So that hypervigilance, nightmares, recurring nightmares is something that a lot of trans widows get. Like, it's PTSD. It's the same. You get flashbacks, you get startle responses, panic attacks, all kinds of things. The levels of alcohol addiction, abuse, it is just astronomical. Almost all of the women, pretty much all of the women, would eventually get on antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds. It's too much. It's too much. And you, because when you're in a relationship, when you're mated, right? And we live in this, we live in a universe of polarity, and we're supposed to, like, that's how our world works. We can't go non-binary because we live in a binary reality. Everything is made of a binary. If I look at my hand, you know, I'm looking at the back, and I know it's the back because there's a front. I know there's an up because there's a down. I know there's a male because there's a female. Like, these polarities are interconnected, and they're opposite, but they're complementary. So in any relationship, polarity is that charge that keeps it going, right? It doesn't matter if it's a homosexual relationship or heterosexual, but you've got a charge, and the polarity of the masculine and feminine energies between you is what keeps that connection. And so when your partner decides to shift their polarity, yours has to shift too, if you're going to stay connected. So that's what these women are trying to do, is they're trying to shift their polarity. But they've, you know, if they wanted to be in a lesbian relationship, they would have, you know, gotten into one with a woman. And there would be that polarity too there. So the amount of shifting that they're trying to do to make their lives and their marriages and their families work, and then also the amount of interference that they have to run, especially mothers with kids, you know, that would be, and it's really weird because pregnancy is a strange trigger for AGP. And I know that Tracy mentioned that. It really is. I mean, the amount of women that I heard, you know, he keeps groping me when I'm breastfeeding, and like all of it, it's just really, it's a strange trigger. And a lot of these guys have mother wounds, like not necessarily abusive mothers, but mothers that they couldn't count on. So I don't know, but I have a lot of theories that like the pregnancy and seeing that happen kind of triggers this thing. But the mothers in these situations are trying to run interference, you know, like they're trying to make sure that the kids don't see it or get confused by it, or if they are seeing it, because a lot of them, if they're in the process of transition, they're like, kids, look, you have to call me mom now, we're going to share Mother's Day. Like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So the amount of like consistent pressure and stress that they're under is insane. So CPTSD is really, really common in them. Yeah. I forgot what the question is.
It is man.